We're in the midst of a huge transformation where our peers, communities, and workplaces are all really melding into one. Welcome to Reimagining Company Culture. My name is Christina Giordano, she, her, and hers, and I am the Senior Partnerships Manager here at AllVoices. Today, I'm very excited to welcome our next guest onto the interview series, Rafael Zamora. He is the Chief People Officer at Converscia. Thank you so much for being here, Rafael. If you could share a little bit about yourself, including your pronouns, and when you were younger, do you remember when you answered the question, what do you want to be when you grow up, your response?
Absolutely. First of all, thank you, Christina, for having me on this podcast. I am so excited. As you mentioned, I'm the head of people and culture here at Converscia. My pronouns are él, he, and him, as I'm Mexican American, born and raised here in the Bay Area. So I'm a Bay Area native, been in the tech sector, wow, I want to say more than 25 years now. So good experience. Have previously worked in 4 late-stage pre-IPO companies, Converscia being my 5th. If there's one thing I'd like to say is Converscia is an awesome company, awesome people. I'm fortunate and blessed to be able to serve the Converscians here, and happy to share my story with all of you. As far as what did I want to be growing up when I was younger? In full transparency, Christina, I wanted to be a basketball player.
There we go.
I love sports. I love basketball, competitive. I love the whole concept about team. I loved just, passing, working, practicing, working with a sense of urgency, that whole concept. But I quickly realized that I had some physical limitations. 5'6" is not going to be your Steph Curry, no dubs of the future. But one of the things that I realized as I was growing up is I was fascinated with people. I was fascinated with wanting to learn why people do certain things, their behaviors, did their upbringings affect them in a certain way, and just all positive things about humans in general. And that led me to pursue being a counselor in high school, which then led me to pursue psychology, where I graduated from University of California, San Diego. And from there, I was still fascinated, wanting to learn more about the psyche of individuals and human behaviors, that I pursued my graduate studies in psychology and organizational development. And it was there where I met a phenomenal man, Dr. Fred Heslett, who is the VP of Employee Relations at Credence. And he said to me, Rafael, you need to be in the tech sector. Mm-hmm. You understand people, you're passionate, you're motivated, you're creative, you're innovative, your upbringing and your background will add a lot of value.
Yeah.
And lo and behold, here I am, started in HR, continued my progression, and brings me here today where I'm the Chief People Officer at Converscia.
Yeah, I mean, I love that. Thank you for sharing your journey to this work and your why with the capital W of why you're in this role as well. You mentioned that you have 25 years of experience here, and you really in the industry, and you really have a passion for people. So I would love to ask, based on your experience and perspective as a leader, how you really think about measuring this dynamic thing of company culture, both in a qualitative way and quantitative way.
Absolutely. That's a great question. In fact, that's a situation, as you probably know, is pretty difficult, especially in this current environment of coming out of a pandemic where everybody's really working, in a remote environment. But from a qualitative perspective, things that I look at as I measure is really the happiness of employees, right? Mm-hmm. How engaged are employees? How motivated, how open in their conversations are they with their managers? Really the overall happiness, the mood, are they working with a sense of energy? And it's pretty hard. And why I say it's hard is because now we do everything via Zoom, mm-hmm. just like what we're doing now.
Right.
And it's not like before where you were in an office where you could really get that sense of the employee's experience and mood real time, right? You have the Zoom conversations, we end the Zoom conversations, the employees go off and do their work, but you're not really seeing them continuously real time. So it's challenging, but to measure culture, you have to when you get on those Zoom calls, when you get on the all hands calls, when you have monthly social hours via Zoom like I do, and also when you have monthly on-sites for those that are local that feel comfortable coming to the office to hear the all hands meetings. You could gauge in conversation, you could hear, you could see their mood and their motivations. And those are all qualitative ways to really get a sense of, are people happy or are they in this 100%? From a quantitative perspective, several ways that I look at things when I think about measuring culture. You have to survey your employees. You have to survey their happiness. You have to survey them with a several series of questions to really get a sense of, A, are they getting what they need for their role? Are they getting the tools they need? Are they getting the support? But also, are they happy? And there are several ways that I will explain on how I believe I've created something here at Converscia, leveraging technology to achieve these means. But other things that you could do from a quantitative perspective is, analyze your regrettable attrition. Really look at, for those individuals that left, why did they leave? What were the reasons behind them making that decision to accept that call and move on to another company? So I look at attrition, I look at, surveying our employees' happiness, and, other things that I do is how proactive and engaged employees are on giving shout outs and cheers to employees for doing good deeds in the company.
Mm-hmm. I think the asking for the employee voice and how people are feeling is really important. And like you said, now that we are on Zoom for a lot of our days, we have to be thinking about company culture in a little bit of a different way. And you mentioned employee engagement well, and I want to be kind of really clear about what we're talking about when we talk about employee engagement. Have you kind of redefined what that means in a virtual friendly or remote first environment, knowing that it's not, how many clicks on your screen and all of that good stuff?
Absolutely. So this is what I'm super excited about when I joined Converscia. And I think this is somewhat of, I don't want to say taboo, but HR executives or leaders and even people managers have somewhat of a bias about surveying their employees for fear that they'll find out, what's in the closet, what issues are happening. And, you have environments where they want to continue to operate and offer programs, but they don't really want to assess whether or not the employee's happy or if they're frustrated or if they just don't feel the company's a unique company. So here, how I've done redefining employee engagement is I've leveraged technology. And there are two pieces of technology that I believe are so compelling and are doing a great thing here at Converscia. So for me, on the social side, I leverage a technology called Donut. And Donut is a social engagement app that allows me and any employee to get randomly selected to have a 30-minute personal coffee chat every 2 to 3 weeks. So imagine this. Here at Converscia, we have 3 site locations, one in Seattle, one in Bellingham, and here in Foster City. We have employees spread out, and now with the pandemic, everyone's spread out, right? Working remotely. Donut randomly selects employees to have these coffee chats. So I'm talking with individuals in Bellingham, I'm meeting individuals in Seattle that I would not normally meet on a day-to-day just due to the sheer roles and responsibilities that I have. And so this technology allows all our employees to get more connected, to learn something more personal about an individual, so that when we come together for a happy hour, I could say, hey, Christina, great meeting. And all of a sudden we have this connection. We have some sort of connection. So Donut is one application that I use, especially to redefine how employees are coming together and just getting to know each other on a personal level.
Mhm.
Second piece of technology that I think is compelling that I'm using today that's awesome is Tiny Pulse. Tiny Pulse has two key mechanisms. One, it allows me to survey our employees anonymously. And the reason why that's important, right, is because I want to make sure employees have an opportunity of sharing honest feedback with me. We talk about getting all that laundry out of the closet. What better way to do it than to have an employee survey that's anonymous, where an employee can feel comfortable sharing their happiness, their sadness, their frustrations, what's working for them, what's not working for them. And then me as an executive leader, take that data, be able to leverage it and be able to address whatever it is that I need to address for our employees. That's the first thing Tiny Pulse does. The second thing is it allows employees an opportunity to give kudos and shout outs to other fellow employees for doing something good,
Yeah.
right? That to me is phenomenal stuff. So that's how I'm redefining employee engagement. And by the way, when we talk about happiness, I measure the happiness by giving them an anonymous survey every month on a scale of 1 to 5. 1, you're pretty much out the door. 5, you're skipping into the office super happy. So get this, utilizing this technology, Converscia is ranging between a 4.2 and a 4.3 out of a scale of 1 to 5. Huge, huge, compelling. And I share those results with the entire employee base every all hands every month so that everybody knows that we're living the values that we believe in. Transparency is one of the big ones. So that's how I redefine employee engagement in the company.
I love it. Those are some really great examples. Donut has come up in a lot of these conversations, especially creating those connections in a really remote friendly world where we're spread across all different geographies there as well. And you mentioned scaling too, especially as new people join as well. And I definitely want to ask too, how you think about kind of scaling company culture and continuing to grow that and have that entrepreneurial mindset as well and all of your kind of systems and processes to promote innovation. What does that look like in practice?
Yeah. So, scaling company culture is a very obviously very important thing, especially with a company that is trying to hire top talent and is trying to do it quickly, right? Given projects and everything that we're doing. One of the things that I do from onboarding to our monthly all hands throughout the journey of an employee here is constantly being transparent with our purpose, our vision, and our mission. It's important that in all aspects, from when the employee enters the company, that they truly understand what our purpose is as a company, what our mission and what our vision is, and what are the core values that we live and breathe and we act as employees. That just really ensures that the employee from the very get-go and throughout the months have a thorough understanding of who we are, what's the backbone of our company, right? Other things that I believe in terms of making a company, fully entrepreneurial and have that entrepreneurial is being transparent. We're constantly practicing this. Every month I hold a people managers meeting, and we offer this meeting as a way of giving the line managers a forum to bring topics top of mind to our employees, right? To our executive team. And we ideate with them around that, and we address and we come up with solutions that then they can go back and share and act with their directs. Again, thinking of the entrepreneurial, thinking of wearing multiple hats, thinking of how can I empower my leaders to work with their employees and bring what's top of mind of the employee to the executive table. So those things, monthly all hands, we recognize cheers for peers, as I mentioned to you, using Tiny Pulse. It's important to really if we're going to scale culture and scale the entrepreneurial spirit, is how do we recognize our employees for doing good deeds and being valued and recognized, especially in this environment. I'll always go back to this, Christina. It's difficult when you don't have people in office that you could just go pat their back on the shoulder or give them kudos real time. So you have to figure out ways of doing that, right? Remotely through apps. You have to figure out ways of doing that in your all hands meetings, et cetera. So those are just some of the ways. And then lastly, it's, recruit talent, right? I focus on hiring people that have the same values, the same cores, the same interests that that the company offers as an experience, especially in this type of startup environment. Have to be able to wear multiple hats, have to be able to roll up your sleeves, have to be able to help each other out and not just stay swimming in your own swim lane. Otherwise, you can't scale.
Absolutely. People want to be recognized for their work, and it's important to offer opportunities for peers and managers and executives to really celebrate that as well. And creating spaces to really ideate and be agile in your strategy is also really important, especially to keep that innovation top of mind as new people are joining and throughout the process. I want to kind of skip ahead to a different part of the employee experience and also ask your intentionality around succession planning and what that approach looks like.
Yeah, so succession planning is important, especially in companies like Converscia, which is growing and scaling, and you're always looking for that top talent. Who are the next leaders in the organization, and how do you invest in your employees, right? So not only have I implemented a quarterly performance review process where every quarter we're top of mind talking to our employees about goals and objectives and skills, but we're also surveying the type of tools and training that they need. So that's one thing. But in terms of succession planning, that group of leaders, I implemented a yearly talent investment session where we have all the people managers literally kind of stack rank on a scale of 1 to 5, 1 being your rock stars, 2 being your above average, 3 being your average, and so forth. But they basically rank their talent. They put feedback about why they are unique in terms of what they're delivering and how they're doing it, what areas are challenges for them, and where can we invest in them. And so doing this exercise every year with the people management team gives them another forum to share their insights, their experiences about their directs with other managers and other managers. And so it becomes more of an exercise of learning and of focusing on top talent and how can we invest in them. So we look at, what recommendations they give. We look at who are their top performers, and then we start thinking about what's the next career progressions for them in the organization. So very unique way of doing this, but it's a very critical and important thing to do in order for us to build that next layer of talent in the organization.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's also a way to operationalize how you're investing in talent as well. And people can tell when an organization and leaders are really investing in their career development, really providing that feedback, being their sponsors and advocates for them to grow too. And I know you've mentioned a lot of examples of how, especially in a remote world, that you are doing things differently. And a lot of people have recognized that this pandemic has forced them to challenge the status quo with business as usual being out the window. Are there any other kind of systems or processes you've innovated recently that you want to share with folks who are listening?
Yeah, I just, to me, the whole concept of, doing this talent investment, it's a pretty big thing, right? Because it's a way for us to differentiate ourselves to employees on how we're investing. Other things that I could tell you that are critical, again, is the investment on the technology that we implemented, right? This, again, I can't tell you, leveraging Tiny Pulse, and it integrates with Slack. We see all the conversations that are happening on Slack channels. I mean, I wish I could give you a glimpse, but we have, a people culture channel on Slack that connects to Tiny Pulse. So anytime someone's giving kudos and is giving recognition, the entire company sees it. So the employee not only gives, kudos to an employee, another peer, but they also give examples of why they're doing it. And so that feeds the engine of positivity, of creativity, and everybody's using their emojis to give thumbs up, claps, cheers, champagne bottles, things like that. So for me, it's really focusing on leveraging technology to really drive this thing, this engine of culture and creativity. To me, it's all about culture. It's all about people. All the successful organizations that I've seen succeed in my last 4 pre-IPO that went IPO, they all had these ingredients from an HR people side. And just, I live by it, I'm implemented it, and now I'm seeing the fruits of it come through.
Yeah, absolutely. Leveraging technology, really testing things, and I think that investment is really important as well. And it demonstrates to your team members that this is something that you're holding yourself accountable for as well in the long term.
Mhm.
Rafael, is there anything that I didn't ask that you want to share with folks who are listening, or maybe underscoring, 1 to 3 key takeaways you hope people bring with them?
Yeah, so I think one of the things, first of all, again, I really appreciate you taking the time to share, giving me this platform on this podcast to share ideas that I'm doing that I
Yeah.
think are important to the industry. Um, One of the things that I would also continue to emphasize is the whole thing about diversity and equality, and things that, organizations to really create committees around DE&I. I'll give you an example. We created 9 pillars here at Converscia. We created a committee that's focused on each pillar. And one of the things that I'm proud of is when I joined the company, um, first question I asked when I was interviewing, and was asked of me if I had any questions. I asked, so what's kind of like the gender diverse makeup of the organization? And from a gender perspective, um, I found that Converscia had about 20% female and 80% male in management level positions.
Mm-hmm.
And being that I have a very strong wife and a very strong daughter that are constantly, giving me perspective, I felt that that was a charter that needed to happen within our DE&I and make a change. Well, now it's been 4 years later, and I'm happy to say Conversica's leadership team is now at a 50-50 mix,
Great.
where we've brought a 50-50 mix. So, to the point and to, the question about breaking biases out in the industry, this is one way that I've kind of channeled leveraging this. And what I'd say to other organizations or other folks out on this podcast is look for ways to make change within your organization, and do it through leveraging your people. People is power. People basically develops a culture that is amazing. I always use the term culture is queen, culture is king, whichever way you want to go with this. But that is what makes a successful organization. So I appreciate your time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for taking the time to share your best practices, what's working, and kind of how you're developing this long-term strategy to enable people to do their best work, and how you're creating those non-negotiables, a common framework for people to do so, how you're investing in resources. Rafael, thank you so much for being on Reimagining Company Culture this afternoon.
Excellent. Have a great rest of the week, Christina. Take
Thank
care.
you. Thanks. You as well. And as a reminder for folks who are listening, at AllVoices, we really believe in that employee feedback management as a requirement for the organization to succeed overall. Have a great rest of your afternoon, everyone.